Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're into spring, which is wonderful. And we're going to talk about rare earths and trade war because this is now being ramped up a little bit heavy duty. But before that, we have to do two things. One of my biggest fans, it's her birthday today. So happy birthday to my mom. A little shout out to my mom. And it's my dad's birthday tomorrow. So some information for people that isn't really relevant to the market, but I thought I'd give them both birthday wishes. And we have to, of course, mention gold because it's broken through 33. I think right now it's at like 33.24. So doing very, very well. In part, we can see that that Chinese gold ETFs for April, the inflows of capital into that increased by 29.1 metric tons in the first 11 days of April. The senior market strategist over at the World Gold Council basically compared that to the inflows from January to March. And from January to March, that entire quarter, it was only 23.5 tons. So that's a significant inflow to the Chinese ETF market. So if you want to know part of what's causing the gold to go up, that could be part of it. I still don't think it's as much retail as it should be, which means there's a huge opportunity for people. And so if you think that the economy has a lot of fixing, which I think most people do on wherever you happen to be, and if you think there's a lot of chaos, which I think everyone agrees, then that's a great place to be looking. And we always encourage people, go talk to your financial planner, your broker, whoever it is that's helping you with your risk level and your overall strategy. Mention it to them. Say, hey, listen, is gold something I need to be looking at? Never mind the gold producers, but that's part of the usual rant we talk about, but I had to mention it because gold's doing very well again. But the rare earth story, that is one we don't touch on quite as often. We have a rare earth report. I know rare earths fairly well, and it's critical because it's one of those interesting ones that can be quite confusing because you need to know a little bit more about it, because it makes it seem like, well, they're rare earth, they must be rare. It's like, well, they're not exactly rare. Most, whether it's rare earth or heavy rare earths, they're not really geologically rare. The issue lies in that the economics, the metallurgy, and certainly the geopolitics of how they're extracting, but not only the extracting, but the processing. That is a big problem. It's often a byproduct of other types of mining, so it's sitting in the tailings. So part of it is just the economically viable concentration of it. So we're going to talk about like some of the issues regarding it, and we'll keep it kind of macro level, kind of high level. I will point people to our website for more details about and to our Substack in regards to rare earth opportunities. But it really does highlight, because at a very high level, this is a very good example of what has happened, and arguably why there is this tariff war that, although it includes other trading partners and Western Europe and Canada, it's really focused on China because they have the production of most metals. They control that. And that, I don't care where you're sitting, that is an issue. I don't care if you hate Trump or not. Your hatred for that person can't outweigh the CCP. It shouldn't. And once again, that doesn't mean you don't trade with people. But this whole discussion is about making sure that the quote unquote West has access to critical metals. And yeah, there's tons of mines. And we'll talk about some of the ones in North America. But once again, it's the topic of metallurgy, the economics of extracting that, and of course, the production to get it refined, to get it to the use. And that use capability, well, it's things like guidance missile systems. So like in Tomahawk missiles, we'll get into that as well. But it's like very critical things that a little bit of sprinkling of some of these heavy rare earths and rare earths make a significant difference. And then that's why even me sometimes arguably say there is no trade war. China controls most metals in producing them and refining them to their end use. And they're used in everything. So do you think they want to give that up? No. Do you think that they're going to be all that excited, especially say when Biden brought the CHIPS Act in to say you're going to allow to start building all these say Taiwanese semiconductor, all these chips, and not only that, but you're also going to have a fully integrated supply chain where you can get the antimony for the chips, you can get all your critical metals for the batteries, that you'll be self-sustaining? No, and no one would want that. I mean, if you're in trade and whether it's just business to business or you got a lemonade stand, you've got competition, you want to have leverage. I mean, we don't need to look at it, too much more aggressively compared to like ideology and politics, but really just economically, you want to have some advantage over someone, some path to success, or if it's not just sheer blunt force, cheap labor, it's got to be something else. And typically, if you're talking about the discussion of West versus East, you're talking about innovation ingenuity versus blunt, basically cheap labor in the East, and scale of replication that they can do. So now, in part, once we know that these are often byproducts of other extracted metals, it really comes down to separating these from like tailings ponds and whatnot, or other things like monazite or bastonsite and things like that. So you have to find something that is scalable and clean, especially if you're in the West. You don't have to worry about so much about that if you're in China. This is part of the issue, is that we have very strict environmental rules, and things that like say in thorium or uranium that must be followed precisely. We've got high, extreme left ECG requirements that arguably are too high. That also mean production of these things is very challenging. And also, we constantly struggle with the not in my backyard crowd in regards to politics and everything. I mean, we cover that all the time. Canada is resource rich, yet the federal government, as much as it likes to say, oh, we're all for this, they really don't help in any significant way. And I know I'm going to get in trouble. I don't care. I'm not running for politics. But, even if you ask ChatGPT, beyond just the talking points or creating a fund to hopefully support mining, how much has the current liberal federal government in the past 9 years or moving forward really made inroads to becoming extractive? It's very little. It'll tell you. And ChatGPT is a progressive, data-based LLM. So China has a massive advantage here, and they dominate not only because it's dirty, scalable, and subsidized. They are able to ignore a great deal of environmental costs. And here I'll give you my kind of 2 cents, is that I don't think they're doing it because we don't care, we're just going to hurt the environment. I don't think that's the plan at all. And that narrative, I think, is kind of silly. I think it's far more nuanced in that they, on all facets, are going lightning fast, and they're saying we will incur environmental costs in the next decade or 2 decades. Yes, it's going to be high. But once we surpass that, we are going to be so self-sufficient, and we will hit metrics that we're happy about, and we'll be able to clean up the sins of those 2 decades fairly quickly. And there's a very strong argument to be made for that type of plan. So it isn't that, yes, we just want to dirty and environmentally pollute for power or money or for the ideology. No, I think it's that they just look to see the West has had a couple 100 years head start. There's been, whether it's coal or whatnot, they've polluted. Of course we have. There's no argument there. Is that they kind of see we need to ramp up every energy possible, every access to mining and production possible in order to leapfrog ahead of the West. That would be my goal if I was a burgeoning superpower. I would say, well, how can we possibly become the world leader? Well, we're going to have to take a little pain, an environmental pain, and ignore all these other groups, the UN and everything else. Like really, they have very little impact on what China decides they're going to do. And once again, if you're an environmentalist, you'd almost say that's a good strategy. If you think we've got till 2050, then they're saying, yes, we're going to pollute, we're going to do all these things, but we think that by then we'll have cut emissions so drastically, but we'll also have solutions. There already are solutions for tailings ponds right now. It's economics, and it's a lot of times in the West, regulation, it's provincial oversight, it's NGOs and environmental groups restricting or getting involved that makes these things enormously challenging to do. Now, the heavy rare earths as well, and we'll get into exactly what those are. They are like a little bit more dispersed and less abundant than the rare earths. And in this ban that's come from China, it's both. So it's all these rare earths. And I won't get into like just the full on metallurgy of those, but it just, bottom line, it becomes much more challenging. The economics of clean and scalable and strategic refining is a lot challenging. The upfront costs, it's really heavy front end loaded to build out hydrometallurgical plants. And of course, once again, long permitting forever. Now, hopefully, whether Trump says that they're, for any kind of project that they think is critical, they are going to make very fast timelines for permitting. Okay, hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see that in Canada as well. And then, of course, you need to have a guaranteed end user buyer, which right now you're seeing a lot more use. And whether it's the Department of Defense in the U.S., there are very strategic end user buyers now that are coming to the forefront. So who do we have then? It is dominated by China, and like I said, most production and most refinement is dominated. So if you look in the States, MP, it used to be called Molycorp. They're in Mountain Pass, California. California is challenging, but they're up and running. Their processing capabilities are good. They send concentrate still to China for separation of the heavy rare earth. So they are building a rare earth separation and magnet production facility in Fort Worth, Texas, and it's just for DoD and some commercial use. But it's very specific what they're doing. But they still have to send to China. I think we saw MP materials went up to like 21% the other day off this announcement. We also see some like energy fuels. So in White Mesa, Utah, they are also focused on looking at different rare earths from monazite sands. They're sending their rare earth carbonate and they're shipping it to Estonia. I think it's Neo Performance Materials for them to separate. So you can see it's not just a matter of finding it, it's also finding who is going to separate it, enhance it, facilitate it, produce it. There's many, many steps. That's also why some people get lost in this, whether it's the heavy rare earths, it's vanadium, or things like first phosphate with phosphoric acid, and the use of lithium iron phosphate batteries, which will be used in robots and EVs, is that you add in chemistry, you add in a couple more steps of complexity that people think, oh my God, this isn't just a matter of digging, finding gold and telling me it's worth this today. There's a lot more steps. There's a lot more knowledge to be had, which means it's much more of a nuanced crowd that's focused in on it, but a lot more interest. Now, once again, will there be a ton of retail interest? I don't know, but there's a ton of defense, a ton of government interest. And that's why people need to pay attention, because some of these companies can do very well. If they land a huge DoD grant, that's non-dilutive money. Anyways, Lynas, they're another rare earth company, but they're also known for vanadium. Very interesting company. They've been around for quite a while. They have a Texas facility for heavy rare earth separation as well. Once again, in coordination with the U.S. Department of Defense. Ucore also up in Alaska and Louisiana. They're also, I think that they're building a strategic metals complex for separation. It's expected end of this year, end of 2026, somewhere around there. So uses, it's submarines, Tomahawk missiles, F-35 jets. We saw some of the rare earths, not the heavy ones, that like neodymium are for magnets. So any of the magnets in your electric vehicles, that's where you get your torque, is the magnets, and you need specialty heavy duty magnets, which come from rare earth. And at the end of the day, yes, the U.S. has started, but the big question is it enough to start a trade war? And it's not. Even with Mountain Pass, even with Energy Corp, even with Linus and Ucore facilities, it's limited yet. So that's a problem. This is where I say having a big trade war with China is definitely difficult. And do I think, a bully stick where you just get in their face and start yelling and screaming? Not my strategy, but hey, I'm also not a president. So, and I think a lot of people would wish it was a bit more diplomatic, because they do hold a lot of the cards, as famously we saw in a previous interview with Zelensky when Trump was talking about who's holding the cards. I would argue that China's holding a lot of cards right now. And I know that people will be annoyed by that, thinking that, oh, you're siding with China. I'm not siding at all with China. I'm just saying factually, they do so much production, not just of the rare earths, which is very specialty, not just of vanadium, but most metals. And they're a huge user of all of it as well. So the heavy rare earths, we won't even get into what they are because it's not really that exciting. We have it all in detail and you can look at it. But here's some historical instances of China when they've got their cackles up or when they get a little bit annoyed. In 2010, regarding a dispute with Japan, they halted all rare earth exports to Japan, which meant their electronics and automotive industry was hurt significantly. All, boom, stop. We're not giving it to you. 2023 to 2024, in retaliation to the semiconductor export controls, China restricted gallium, germanium, and antimony. So that was under the Biden administration. The antimony made a big headlines because that is critical for chip making, essential also for lots of other electronics and defense applications. But the chips and the CHIP Act, and the U.S. deciding we want to have like NVIDIA building chips here, you can see, well, that's very impactful. If we can't get the critical metals, all the ingredients that you need to make these things. In 2024, the China, following EU tariffs, went after them, also said no antimony for you, restricting their access. And of course, the ongoing issues now. So right now, there's a lot of cards being played, let's just say. But it is a very, very interesting time because we're getting closer to people truly realizing how critical, not just the critical metals are, the critical gases and everything else, is that steps are being made to try to get them. And that is the hardest obstacle that faces mining, is that I could point out all of these massive macro Department of Defense, big mandates from most European EU countries, China, India, and the US saying we want these metals. Yet you're going to have a lot of pushback. And once again, even though these are going to be used to solve every climate agenda issue that one could possibly have, it seems to be a disconnect there with that crowd to understanding that that's where they come from. There are a couple other companies that one could look at. I certainly am not recommending or anything else. One that's interesting that I actually know a little bit about, we'll mention in our blog. I don't want to mention it here as well, but we had actually looked very, very strongly at them because they had a good resource. And then they were working on building out an actual plant. They just didn't seem to manage the deal very well, but it's a very interesting project. Maybe they'll make a go of it, but I'm not going to mention who they are. But certainly these other ones are worth taking a peek at. Go find some videos on energy fuels, defense metals or Ucore. There's a number of companies out there. They're doing interesting things. Never mind MP, like Molycorp. It used to be called Molycorp. MP is probably your largest go-to rare earth US company. Lots of interesting backstory to it as well. But it's showing where this might go if we keep on pushing. And certainly under Trump, we're going to see all of these trade logistics change. They just are. They're going to, and they should. We've been talking about it for years. The West has to start producing these things. And whether or not you like the narrative of we should be manufacturing or we shouldn't be manufacturing, we have to be producing these. because you can't ask people with different beliefs and ideologies to be best friends. They just aren't. We aren't best friends with people that we live down the block from. You have to find your friends, work with your friends, and then also not antagonize them, of course. You have to be diplomatic, but you have to be self-sufficient. And right now, we're not. And certainly not Canada. We could be completely vertically integrated. We could be literally a tiny country that is leading the way, but they've chosen not to. And this election will make a big decisive change in that as well, is if Canada decides they want to be a major player in the world as far as clean tech, energy, the energy revolution, the transition, or if they choose to say, no, we don't want to extract anything. We'd like it just to be done somewhere else where no one sees, and we can talk about reducing emissions by 0.1%, and look at us, we're so great and clean. Yes, I'm being very critical. And we've covered that quite well in our blog, where we talk about just basic math, basic add up regarding Canada or the UK. Their complete total emissions are like a basic, not even a standard deviation point. It's a rounding error compared to someone like China or India, as far as not only carbon emissions, but pollution. We are not of any substantive issue. We're not the problem. And we cover that very well in our Substack article. Love to hear your feedback. And I know regarding that, it's always, well, but per capita, we've got a high one. Doesn't matter. Like whether it's per capita, the only number, if you're concerned about the environment, is the total number. So per capita is meaningless at this point. We all, say, well, we want to have 100 million people in Canada. No, we don't want to have 100 million people in Canada. Thank you very much. That would potentially, maybe in the future, be emitting this number. That, like, we're dealing with the reality here and now. If you want that huge number of emissions, and that's what your goal is, you go after the huge emitters. Taking a 20% cut from Canada is nothing. It would do nothing. If everyone rode a bicycle and stopped using cars, it would do nothing. If you took a 10, 15, 20% reduction from China, now we're talking. If you just provided LNG to China and India and African nations, and stop burning wood or kerosene or coal, or burning coal, yeah, you get all your emissions down drastically. So it's interesting that that's never on the table. Anyway, enough of all my ranting about tariffs, about gold, about everything. All this is on the table, though, and it's being forced in your face. So we want to kind of highlight that. And it is challenging, but there's also, in that discussion, there's every way for you to be involved. You can become a stakeholder in the green revolution, the transition, whatever you want. It's out there. I hear this often from people saying, you're taking our land, you're taking this. No, you can invest in every one of these projects. And most of them are fairly cheap. You can be a partner very quickly. And it's open to everyone. There's no ideology needed. So I like to remind people of that as well, is that this is on a very opportune time and a very interesting time. And with all this volatility, it's key to keep your brain focused on what's really at stake here. And there is an ideology clash, of course, but there is a recognition, whether it was from Biden as well, there was a recognition that we needed critical metals, that they need to have a bit more autonomy. I think arguably they're a little bit more friendly with China about it than certainly Trump. But it doesn't matter. It's the same narrative, is that we need to have access to this and produce some. And how can we do it in a politically sensitive way? Because these projects are long-term projects. China can go ahead and build out projects for 20 years. They don't hold, there's no real election. They're just going to do it and no one can stop them. In Canada, one person can stop a project. And that's how ridiculous our system has become. And that is a message for those that want to see this revolutionary change in energy and to unlock the future potential that we could have, is that the people standing in the way are the people in the streets, cheering, or chanting the loudest regarding climate change. And if we can hit them and educate them and help them to realize that, And most governments are very well aware of it as well. It's just the likes of certain types of governments, they just prefer not to do it at home. And my agreement always is, you want to do it home, not only mine it, but produce it and refine it, because especially Canada, we have outstanding regulation. We would have a world-class opportunity to show the world that, yes, it's a dirty business. It's difficult. It's not easy, but we can do it, and we can do it profitably. Enough of my ranting. Everyone, have a great week. We won't see you on Friday. It's Easter long weekend. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.